Do you have a hard time accepting compliments? Do you have a hard time receiving gifts for no reason? Do you have a hard time letting people serve you and help you? And how could those patterns be exactly what is preventing you from accomplishing your goals and to receiving more? Well, today we are talking about expanding our capacity to receive with grace. Welcome to Burnout Solutions. My name is Mona Tippett. I am a registered nurse, a life coach, an emotional resiliency expert, and a mom. I love to help healthcare workers and caretakers and just busy, capable people understand their brain and nervous system so stress, overwhelm, and frustration do not run their life. Here on this podcast, we break down burnout, emotional overload, and survival patterns in simple human language. I love to give you practical ways to feel safer, calmer, and more present in your everyday life. You do not need fixing. What you need is support and a nervous system that knows that it's safe. Thanks for being here. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about something that I've been helping clients with this week, and I've had thoughts on my mind from the last few podcasts we've done. Also overlapping with making goals, and it comes down to answering a few questions that my clients had. And one was, how do we hold space for what we have and be okay with what we have, and at the same time still want more and increase our capacity to receive? And I've thought a lot about this because as high achievers, often we are not very good at receiving. What we are good at is giving. We give effort, we give care, we take responsibility, we take care of other people, we give support, we give lots of things, and receiving is difficult. And often this is where things can fall apart, and this is where it's really hard for us to allow that receiving to come in, because sometimes we feel like we're weak, or it wasn't something that was modeled to us, or we needed to step up to create something more in our life. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how we can expand our capacity to receive, kind of why allowing others to help us can feel dangerous, unfamiliar, or embarrassing, and how really increasing our capacity to receive is one of the best ways I know of to heal our nervous system. And it can help us create a beautiful, better regulated life, especially if you work in healthcare, especially if you take care of other people. So let's talk about our blueprint once again. For many high achievers, receiving isn't even a neutral feeling. It feels very vulnerable. It feels exposing, uncomfortable, unsafe, and not because we are ungrateful for other people, but it is unfamiliar because for many of us, our nervous system learned very early that safety comes from being competent or hiding our weaknesses. Safety comes from not letting people see where you are failing. Failing is in air quotes. Belonging comes from being useful, being needed, fulfilling a task. Our worth comes from contribution, from performance, from accolades. And so being on the receiving end can feel like losing part of our control or our identity. And what we want to do when we are increasing our capacity is to develop a better relationship with safety and expansion. Because when we think about expansion and wanting things, we need to remember that we often want what we have never had. And if we have never had it, it feels unfamiliar and unsafe. And so it naturally will appear dangerous to us. The beauty about expanding our capacity is that we actually have no limit, right? And the more that we can stay present, the more that we can communicate safety at every single level of our expansion, it helps our nervous system learn, I'm okay here, I am safe, growing is okay, receiving is okay. And we've talked about this a lot, but our blueprint is essentially a thermostat. So it is a set point. And this thermostat of our nervous system is formed in a few ways. Our childhood lived experiences, things that were given to us in the womb, and even our ancestral DNA, which was passed down from our ancestral lived experiences, kind of the environment of our situation when we were in the womb in our early growing up years. Remember, 0 to 7 to 8 years old. These are inherited experiences. And this thermostat is like a code that tells us what is safe and what is not. It tells us how to live this code, and it creates a familiarity. And I want you to understand that this isn't really the facts. This is just a perception that you as a child perceived. It's the general vibe. It's the general tone. And our nervous system is very good at observing, but very poor at interpreting. So again, it's not intellectual, it's not facts, but it's perception. And I want you to just think about, what was the vibe that you grew up in? What was the feeling in your home? Was it basic survival? And think about your ancestors. Mine were farmers. And my grandma and my dad talked a lot about the Depression, and work and money felt very scarce. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of stress around it. There was a lot of things being limited, and things were unavailable and were hard to come by. There was a lot of suffering, a lot of stress just associated with life. So if you think of, like, what would a book title be of your ancestors or the home that you were growing up in? And maybe mine was, life is hard, so we work hard. I want you to think about your blueprint. Was it a place of joy and expansion and a lot of love and a lot of accepting and a lot of, yay, we're so happy for you, you're doing a great job, you can have anything in your life? Or was it more, money doesn't grow on trees? Was it the land of no? My kids tell me all the time, you always say no. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of true. I'm working on that. And it is beautiful, I'm going to say, to look back and see that my nervous system has expanded. We're going to talk about that more. But what was the vibe of you growing up? Was it okay to receive and give compliments? Was there a lot of play? Did you look for the good? Because remember, to the nervous system, your blueprint was the energy that creates that thermostat. So I thought of a few examples of how it has been hard for me to receive in the past. And I really do believe that a lot of healthcare workers are the worst patients, and me included. And I say that with a lot of compassion, but it is true. And I thought about two situations specifically where I was in the hospital. Early in my nursing career, I had an emergency surgery, and it surprised me just how hard it was to need help, but also it was hard for me to be cared for by people that I worked with. And I worked with the surgeon who operated on me. I worked with the nurses who took care of me. And even after my recovery, luckily, I was moved to another unit. But even then, I felt almost embarrassed to be one of the patients getting taken care of. And as I look back, my nurse had the easiest job because I did everything for her. I charted my own input and output, and I wrote everything on this little napkin on my bedside table. I changed my own bed sheets. I ordered my own food. I took my breakfast tray back to the return area. I charted my pain score. They had some ibuprofen or whatever that I could take on my own for pain, and I charted my pain score before and after, and I just did everything. And this might look like dedication, but on the inside, this is really a nervous system that did not know how to receive care. Fast forward to my next job when I was actually having my first child, and the pattern showed up again. I was being induced, and again, same hospital that I worked at. I loved my nurse. She took great care of me if I would let her, but I didn't. I did my own fetal heart rate monitoring. I adjusted the monitors. I took myself to the bathroom. I wrote, again, things on a paper towel. I was like, oh yeah, here's this. When she would come in, oh, I already did this. You just need to chart it. And even after I had my baby, instead of resting, I just went to the nurse's station and was chatting with everybody. And it was really hard for me to receive care. When you think about some people having a hard time receiving compliments, including myself, I have come a long way with this, but this is the same reason. It doesn't feel safe to accept that compliment either from their inner critic or from their past painful learning with getting compliments, and it just feels dangerous. Because based on our past, and if we look into our evolution, an unfamiliar situation was scary. Another situation I thought of was when I got married. I walked into my house with my husband, and there was a vase of roses on our counter, and it actually scared me because I thought, who broke into our house? And my husband was just standing there smiling, and I walked over to it, and he had one of his friends buy me flowers and put them in our house, and it was this really lovely card that said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Tippett," and it was a very kind and loving gesture. However, immediately I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and I told him, I really don't love flowers because they just die. Like, spend your money in a different way. But as I look back, I have thought about it often, and why it bothered me so much was because in the past I had received flowers before. I had a steady boyfriend in high school. I've had boyfriends before, and they gave me gifts, and often those gifts were met with jealousy from people in my family, from my friends, judgment about me receiving that gift. Like, oh my gosh, that's not fair. Why does she get to have something good? Why should she feel so special, etc.? And my nervous system recorded that it is dangerous to receive gifts that I hadn't earned, right? It's not my birthday. There's no reason for me to receive this amazing gift. And since then, I have learned to enjoy flowers. I have a flower garden, and I purposefully bring them in and enjoy the beauty of the flowers from our garden. And I have learned to receive that and be in the present with that beauty. The other hard thing that this leads me to think about is the position I've put others in my family and those close to me, that it is difficult for doing nice things. It's hard to serve and help and love on people who are super hyper independent and stuck in this small container of receiving, because helping often doesn't look like it's appreciated. It can be seen as, why are you doing that? Like, feels so unfamiliar. It feels so out of place. It feels so wrong. I just want to take care of things myself. Maybe those other people feel like I don't need you. And maybe this is why gifts aren't my love language, because that wasn't modeled to me. But ultimately, looking back, I felt unsafe. And when I see a gift and something wonderful and whole and good as being unfamiliar, it's very often that our mind makes a story up. Remember, we have a lens on in our nervous system state, and we see that story through that lens. And so our mind steps in and it creates a story and says, this feels unsafe. Why would this be unsafe? This feels like more than I'm used to. This is very unfamiliar. And why is that? And so we make up a story. Oh, this person might have, different motives. They might be trying to get something from me. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And so we create a story to explain that. Okay. And I thought about a metaphor that I wanted to use. And we own a business, and we make and sell tomato cages to local nurseries around us. And they're really the best tomato cages ever. I am not the best of gardener, regardless of me selling these great tomato cages, but I do know a little bit about gardening, and specifically about tomato plants. And if you start a tomato plant from seed, or really any plant, the seed is really small, you start in a very small pot, or even you don't even use dirt. It's just like a seed starter. And then gradually, as that seedling grows, you plant it in a larger pot and a little bit larger. And usually I buy my tomatoes, because I don't like growing them from seeds. I buy them already grown, 6 inches to 10 inches tall in a pot. And once they're in that pot, they are fine until up to a certain point. And if I left that tomato in that pot, it would start to suffer. The roots can often get too tangled. The growth can slow down. The plant can become really stressed. It can even die. Not because of how I'm taking care of the plant, but because the pot that the plant is in is too small and it needs to be moved to a bigger one. However, sometimes if you have a little seedling and you move that tiny seedling into a big pot that's too big, it can also get transplant shock, and it can struggle. It can even die because the container was too big. Even if the soil's fine, the roots need time to adapt. So the best way to grow a healthy tomato plant is you transplant it from one small pot to the next, to a slightly bigger one, to a slightly larger one, and continue on. And again, even if the weather conditions are perfect, sometimes these plants need to be babied. And sometimes we even, once we plant them in the ground, we put these little greenhouses around them with water in them to protect them from the wind and to keep the temperature a little bit more constant. And we grow them gradually and use support to grow them into these big, healthy tomato plants. Once a tomato plant is growing, they can go gangbusters. And especially if you have an indeterminate tomato plant, they can grow really big, sometimes even the size of a car. Sometimes they can grow like 65 feet long if they're in a greenhouse year round and the climate is fine. They can be ever growing, ever bearing, and sometimes need to be trimmed back. Now, just like this tomato plant, a human being's capacity to receive works best when it is gradual, works best when it is incremental. If we make a huge goal and sometimes we meet that, it feels so scary and so unfamiliar to our nervous system that we shrink back. And that's when our brain steps in, makes up an idea and says, this is where we don't deserve this. We are unworthy. We are unlovable. We haven't done anything to earn this. And this can be anything. It can be money. It can be time. It can be goodness in our relationships. It can be a different body size. And this is also where imposter syndrome can sit in, where we can feel we're not valuable enough. It is because our nervous system is not prepared for that amount because our capacity is still small, because we don't have the capacity to receive. And this is where that expansion actually registers like a threat, and our thermostat can't handle it because it's too much. And we shrink back into our container that feels safe and secure and manageable. Okay. So before we talk about how to increase our capacity just a little bit, I wanted to talk about another client's question that I had this week about how do we be okay with where we are? Still want more. And this is exactly where we start, is not judging ourselves for where we are in several different ways, not judging our body for how it looks or for our sicknesses, or not judging ourselves for our current income levels or what our family relationships should be versus what we have. And it is loving what is right now. And that takes practice. That takes a lot of compassion. We're also not judging and comparing. It's dropping the judgment and being okay and trying to find the good in the life that we have. And this is why gratitude works so well, is it's wanting what you have. It's seeing how good things are in your life, and you can still want more, But a lot of us judge ourselves, and I'm not talking about if you're in like an abusive, horrible situation. Of course, there are things you can do, but we work on not focusing on the gap of what we have and what we want. As we do that, we are doing things to gradually increase our capacity to receive. And how can we do that? There are a few gentle ways to practice this and help your nervous system see safety. The first is to notice resistance. When something good happens, do you feel a tightness, an urgency, a deflection? These are signals from your nervous system. They're not indicating necessarily a problem, but again, it's unfamiliar. In the ways of receiving care from other people or compliments or allowing yourself to receive from other people is to allow people to be imperfect, which can be hard. Let someone help you without correcting them, without critiquing how they're doing. See the safety, see the thoughts behind it and the intent behind it, and work on just accepting it. Another way is to stay present. Remember that life happens in micro moments. So stay present in that moment and hold back on wanting to control and pay attention to your nervous system and communicate and name the safety. I am safe to receive. I don't have to earn this. This is okay that this can happen. And I talked about this in a few of the episodes, like just go outside and feel the sun on your skin. Just sit in a warm house and think of the beauty of being in a warm house. Walk outside and look at nature. Anything that we can do to name safety in any moment helps increase our capacity gradually. And this is how it works. A few other ways to be in the present and communicate safety is just feel gravity on your body. Feel your feet on the floor. If you're driving, feel and concentrate on feeling the steering wheel in your hand. What does it feel like to sit in a chair? Describe and orient the things that you see. I do often the name 5 things that you see, can touch, smell, and do that often to communicate to your body and your nervous system that things are safe. Because remember, the nervous system does not learn through intellect and facts. It learns by modeling. It learns by experience. You have to show your nervous system that you are safe, which involves a lot of body work. So paying attention to and recognizing and being purposeful in feeling that safety. The other thing we can do is when we have a negative emotion that our body wants to tighten up against and push down or buffer against, allow that feeling to come through. Our feelings are nothing dangerous. They're not going to kill us. And emotions, energy and motion, it takes about 90 seconds to dissipate in your body. So you can do anything for 90 seconds. So do what you need to do to let that energy and that emotion run its course. Shake out your hands if you need to scream into a pillow, or we have a punching bag in our garage that comes in handy quite often. Go punch a punching bag for 90 seconds. Walk around, jump, shake your hands. Do calf raises, rotate your ankles, anything that we can help to get the energy moving and out and dissipated can help. And the more that we do this, the more our nervous system learns that we are okay to receive. We gradually increase our capacity. And the beauty about human beings is that we are never capped at our capacity to love, to enjoy, to feel pleasure, to have the good things in life. It just can get better and better and better. And the better it gets, the better it gets. Okay, so I also wanted to mention that maybe if you are a skeptic that you have to have more of a capacity, maybe you have the question, how come I've been able to receive all that I have, even if I don't find safety in certain things? And my answer for that is you can be motivated by fear. And when I look back at my life, there have been so many things in my life that I have accomplished by fear driving me, by scarcity driving me, doing things to protect myself from a consequence that I thought was scary. And fear and protection can be a huge driver in our life. And being able to white knuckle things, force things to happen. And again, the motivator though behind that is scarcity and protection. And it might accomplish things in the short term, or you just keep that pattern on repeat because you have found that it has worked for you. But then life catches up and you think, is that effective? Is this the feeling that I want to have driving me? And many people have been very successful with fear driving them and insecurity and hiding their true self or wanting to prove to the world that they are lovable, and their money is proving that, their nice car is proving that, and their $1 billion is proving that. But at the end of the day, they still often struggle with being with themselves. And so overworking is just a buffer. So just in closing, receiving is not a weakness for all of our high achievers out there. It is a skill that we learn by gradually increasing our capacity to receive. And just like any skill, it can be practiced, it can be strengthened, it can be expanded. We don't need to overhaul your entire nervous system overnight. That actually doesn't work. You just need a slightly bigger pot. And over time, with care and support, you will be amazed at how much you will be able to hold and receive. And this is what I love. Change happens gradually and sometimes unnoticeably. But when I look back over the last 3 years of my life and how things have changed, one of the biggest things that I love is being able to sleep every night soundly and at real rest. And I wake up feeling good. My relationships are better. My capacity to even do things has increased with less stress, with more fulfillment. And this is what I just love, is when you teach your nervous system and you're compassionate and kind and drop the self-judgment and the hypercritical, all those things I talk about. My life has become more beautiful, and I've seen that in my clients' lives, and I would love to help you. But this week, just work on increasing your capacity gradually. And because remember, our goals and the good things in life often don't come because they feel dangerous to us, because our wants are something that we've never had before. Thanks for listening. Share this episode or give me a comment and let me know what you thought about it. So take care. Every week, you're learning something new here on this podcast, and that is a powerful first step. But guess what? Information alone doesn't create transformation. True change happens when you start to think differently and shift the nervous system patterns that drive your behavior. As a coach and an emotional resiliency expert, that is the work I do. I love to walk alongside you, whether it's one-on-one, in a small group that you choose, or with your workplace team. I can help you retrain your brain and nervous system so that stress no longer runs the show. You'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Let's do this work together.